Lee, I would like you to unmute and let me introduce him as he is from Cosmetolian Group, Washington, D.C., Serenity Prayer. Lee, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lee, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm visiting you from Washington, D.C. I'm a member of the Cosmopolitan Group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I appreciate Christy inviting me to join you all this afternoon. Let me begin. Let me tell you something interesting that you may or may not know. We meaning those of us who have come here to Alcoholics Anonymous Fellowship and stayed here, we are the responsible ones. We are the ones in service to make sure that everybody that follows us, that we set an example that is so appealing that each of the new people this afternoon will want to stay with us. Now, I would encourage you, if you don't hear anything that makes any sense, don't let your eyes and your ears confuse you. I want you to pay attention to who you see. And the men and women you see on the screen this afternoon, outside of those who identify themselves in new or relatively new, we are the men and women who've been here and are committed to staying here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been a member of this fellowship since March the 5th, 1976. And the way you can kind of put that in perspective is take the number 48 and subtract it from your age. That'll give you some idea, not only how long I've been sober, but how old I am. I got here when I was 30 years old. I was young and strong, and drinking was a way of life. And I was encouraged and motivated by the people I hung out. And if nobody's told you this, I want you to pay attention to who you hang with and who you listen to. And ladies and gentlemen, I was hanging with people that look like me and drank like me and talk like me. And the reason I want to point that out to you is because a lot of my belief system, the way I believed, what I believed, came from the people that I hung out with and I drank with. And today I can look back and see that it doesn't make any sense, but I couldn't see it while I was in it. And when I say in it, I'm talking about my active life of drinking. I didn't know how to describe what happened to me, but I know now. Now, let me share it with you, especially those who have said that they're new. First time I can remember drinking and it having an effect on me, I was 15 years old, and I was with the guys in my neighborhood, and it was during December. That's both my birthday and the holiday, Christmas. And I ended up drinking, not because I wanted to, but because one of the guys in the group challenged my manhood. And he wanted to know why I wasn't drinking. Was I a punk? And ladies and gentlemen, at that instant, my brain told me I didn't want to be a punk. I had to drink to be part of the group. Today, I know that that activated what you all have taught me is both the obsession to drink. And again, I want you to follow this. The obsession means that once I started thinking about when I was going to drink again, who I was going to drink with, where I was going to drink at, what I had to steal or do. I was a kid, but what I had to steal or do to have my monies to put in with the guys at 15. What I also have learned from you all is this idea of compulsion. And it has to do with the fact that once I start drinking, doesn't matter how much is available to me, it's never enough. I just want more and more and more and more. This was at 15. It just started to, progression means that my thinking got more intensified and my compulsion, my behavior, my hanging out with people that drank, it became very slowly, very gradually. When you hear us talk about progress, the progression of my obsession increased almost daily. I started looking forward to the weekends because that's where we would do most of our drinking. 15, 16, 17 years old, and still going around school. I wasn't going in. I wasn't learning nothing, but I was going to hang out. And it just intensified, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because I didn't get any serious trouble as a kid. When I reached 17 and the high school that I was attending at the time, they thought, let me they thought it was no value to them or to me to keep me back. So they gave me a high school diploma and let me go. And what that means is that I finished high school in June 13th, 1963. I had a high school diploma, but I didn't have a high school education. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, don't forget, I started drinking at 15. This happened at 17. And I've heard people say things like, well, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I'm not sure I know what that means, full-blown. I now know I was an alcoholic before I drank, and drinking added to my behavior and my confusion, my mentalness. Well, lo and behold, my dad wanted to know, son, now you're out of school, what you going to do? I had no ambition or no intention on going to college. I had no intention, no ambition to get a job. I just wanted to keep drinking and hanging out because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed drinking and I enjoyed hanging out. So he kind of got serious with me. Make a long story short, I ended up in the Navy. And 1965, shipped out to Vietnam. Got back home in 67, 66, and went to work for the post office here in Washington, D.C. in 1967. And it seemed to me, in looking back, that everybody I kept meeting drank. And most of the people that I kept meeting drank like me. And that was really good for my comfort. I felt safe. I always feel safe around people that drank like me. Not people that drank, people that drank like me. Well, lo and behold, I happened to have met a co-worker of mine, lady who non-alcoholic, but she knew a guy that got sober, and she saw the change in him. She saw him before he went in, and then he went into treatment. He came back to treatment from treatment at work, and she was just really impressed with the change. He was well groomed. He came to work every day on time, did his job, minded his business, and she was just amazed. And she said, "Well, John, what happened to you?" He said, "Well, I went to treatment, and now I'm going to AA." She said, "What is AA?" He said, "AA are the people in the community that are helping me stay sober." And she said, "Well, will you help Lee?" And I didn't think I needed help based on the people I was drinking with and the people I was listening to. But he reluctantly agreed, and he brought me to my very first meeting. That's how I got to AA, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't get here because I wanted to stop drinking. It wasn't the police, it wasn't the courts, it wasn't none of that. He asked me if I would be on my front porch at 9:30, Saturday morning, March the 5th, 1976. He picked me up and took me over to St. Elizabeth's Hospital here in D.C. And that's when I sat in my first AA meeting. But look, when I got to the doorway, little guy came up, "Hey, welcome, want a cup of coffee?" Now, I didn't drink coffee then, but I smoked cigarettes. I don't think I had a cup of coffee in my first meeting, but I looked around the room, and that's what I want you new folk to do. I want you to look at this screen, and I didn't see anybody that I knew. And I sat down and I listened to them people talk, and I didn't hear anything that made any sense to me. But, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you with absolute certainty something happened to me that day, something happened in me that day, and something happened for me that day. And you all have taught me since I've been here about this psychic change. Now, the way that Bill describes it, he describes it as surrender. I don't remember surrendering. I do remember that I gave up hanging out with them people I drank with. Now, hanging out means after work. I work with them, so I kept going to work, but I didn't want to drink anymore. And this has become a pattern, just like drinking did. It became a way of life. My involvement in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous has become a way of life. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's important that you hear this. I do not attend AA meetings because I'm scared I'm going to drink. I don't believe that. That's just me and my belief. I don't think God got me sober to live scared. I think He got me sober so I can be a living example that AA works. Lee don't work, but AA works. And how could I know that? Because I've been sober ever since I've been hanging with y'all. And immediately my life got different. I have not been in an at-fault accident since I've been sober. I've not been arrested. I've been stopped a few times by the police, but that was simply because I was speeding. But I didn't get a speeding ticket because I knew I was wrong. And I've learned how to talk like I got some sense. License and registration, yes, officer. Do you know you were speeding? Yes. That kind of attitude got me warning tickets and, and no points. So let me get to what I think and what I call the best part of my life. Carl got John to bring me to you all. Looking around the room, didn't see anybody, listening to you talk, didn't hear anything that made any sense. But I knew there was something different about you all. And what really solidified it for me, remember now, I drank where I worked. So on March the 4th, I was a drunk. I knew it because the people in my life that I drank with, that's what we called ourselves, drunks. And we didn't think we were alcoholics because none of us was panhandling and living under bridges and overcoats and that sort of thing. I kept coming to the meeting and then going to work. Coming to the meeting, going to work. When I come to the meeting, I see you all. You all, listen to this. At the beginning of this meeting, somebody read how it works. If you will pay attention to the words, it really helps give you some idea about what this is really all about. And after Bill and those early people created this program of recovery, they didn't create a program for alcohol. They created a program for alcoholism, and they created it and tested it among themselves. And when they were absolutely certain that what they had created worked, you got to follow this. When they were absolutely certain, no doubt about it, that what they had created worked for them, Bill Wilson thought, if you've not yet heard this, he thought, now that we got, now this is in writing, Bill said, now that we got it, so what's the it? The it is the program of recovery. Now that we got it, how can we get it to those who need it? I want you to follow this carefully. Now that we got it, they wrote it, they created it, they tested it, and they knew that it worked. Absolutely. And Bill wanted it to be available to other folk. That's called vision. He was a visionary, along with being he was the author of that experience from 1935. He put the words all together that a lot of us swear by. But the kicker is he said, now that we got it, how can we get it to those who need it? If nobody told you today or lately, we are the people that he envisioned that would need a program of recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing Bill Wilson or anybody else can do about making alcohol and drinking alcohol. That's not what they realized. They figured out that alcohol wasn't the problem. And they put all of this information in a book. They put it in a book. That's why they said alcohol is but a symptom. A symptom of what? All of this stuff that was going on in me that I didn't know what the name of it was. And I was just satisfied because I was excited how different my life got once I stopped drinking. I was really excited about don't drink, go to meetings. I told me and anybody that would listen to me that that was Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't drink, go to meetings. I'm really pleased and happy to say that you all have helped me change that. You keep going to these meetings, you're going to start hearing people talk about this program. You'll hear some of us talk about this book. The program is in the book. What's in the book of what the first 75, 80 people figured out what the solution was, the solution to alcoholism. And they figured it out. And now, okay, now we got it in a book. How do we get the book out? And that's a whole different talk about all that they had to do to raise the money and et cetera, et cetera. But Bill and Bob met in 35. The book was published in 39. And if you do the math, that will let you know that in 1939, when that book was published, made available to the public and any and everybody, when it was published, nobody in Alcoholics Anonymous had more than 4 years of sobriety. Nobody had more than 4 years. In chapter 11, A Vision for You, Bill closes that chapter by saying, we know only little. Say, more will be revealed. Now, that had to be true because they met in 35. The book was published in 39. They know only little. But ladies and gentlemen, if you'll get that book and don't read it academically, study it. Let what the people that figured out what alcoholism is and how to manage it, let that be the reason and the purpose for getting the book. My sponsor told me, son, all of this that you come to me whining and complaining about, the answers are in the book. Well, I didn't want to read no book. I ain't want no, I'm not interested in no book. I want you to, not only did I want him to tell me what to do, but I wanted him to be on my side. See, because I'm just learning about self-righteousness. I didn't drink with people that talk like inventory, self-centered. I knew what self-pity was, but all of these character defects words, I'd never heard them before. So it was a difficult experience once I tried. It wasn't difficult while I wasn't trying. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, I'd been coming to AA, not drinking for at least 30 years before I had a spiritual awakening. And then y'all kept telling me about the program of recovery, and you kept talking about the book. And somewhere, I just say 35, I really don't know for sure, but I had a spiritual awakening and I became interested in this program. I became interested and I learned how to read the information in this book and changed my life. Having nothing to do with drinking, because I don't drink anymore. My sponsor told me when you stop drinking, you stop having a drinking problem. You can't blame drinking for how you behave if you don't drink. So I said, well, what if I don't drink, go to meetings, isn't that solving the problem? He said, no, Lee, that's exposing the problem. Well, what are you talking about? He said, in the book, it's going to help you. And he said, not only is it going to help you, he said they put numbers by them just for you. Now, he didn't call them directions. They didn't call them they didn't call them recipes or rules. Go back to how it works. Rarely have we, who have come here and stayed here, seen a person fail who has followed our path. And I asked my sponsor, well, what's the path? He said, for you, it's to the next meeting that you go to. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been following you all since day one. And I finally got to where I understood the part of the book that says we first come because we have to, and then we have a psychic change, and we continue to come because we want to. That's why I'm here today. I want to be here. It's my third meeting today. And in between all of this, I got a full life. I got 3 kids, I got 4 grandchildren, I got friends, I got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it all follows this. You got to be careful not to miss that. All of it follows this. Well, what is the this? It's my commitment to being available for you all like people were available to me. That's just an amazing simplistic way of being able to appreciate. Instead of, I used to think now I got to. Now I get to say I have to. I don't have to. I want to. Remember that post office I told you about? I retired from there in 1992. Yeah, sure did. I've been retired longer than I worked. You know I ain't mad. Okay, let me take these last few minutes. This program of recovery. What I'd like you to try, and I don't think anybody's ever told you this before, you know the part where they read the steps? What I'd like you to try for your own growth and development, I want you to read the steps without the numbers. I want you to read the steps without the numbers. I want you to hear yourself say, if you admitted you were powerless over alcohol, that your life had become unmanageable, and that you came to believe that a power greater than yourself. And Bill always wrote in we, us, and our. It was always inclusive of the fellowship because that's where the information comes from. It comes from us. Bill Wilson was one of us, ladies and gentlemen. He was one of us. You know, and I don't know, a lot of people I hear thinking that he was something better and different. No, he wasn't. He was one of us, and he listened to people like us, both in and out of the fellowship. Because all of the information that we have that's available to us didn't come from alcoholics. We have friends. I told you the reason that I got here, well, I don't know if the reason is the right way to phrase it. The way that I got here was a non-alcoholic lady named Carol. She knew an alcoholic named John. She saw what y'all did for him, asked him to help me, and this is what y'all did for me. You gave me a life beyond my wildest imagination. I just told you I've been retired. And I have no interest or inkling at working. All right, but I enjoy my life and the people in it. And there are a couple of them on the screen. I think more of my folk would show up if they knew the right the ID got them confused. So I think Christy said where's Chris? Christy, I got 5 more minutes. Okay, all right. So here's what I'd ask you to hang on with. Now follow this carefully. The early people created the solution to alcoholism. You don't have to stop drinking forever, ladies and gentlemen. The people were asking Bill, say, well, how do you manage this? What you mean I can't ever drink again? No, Bill said, well, slow down. Say today is Saturday. So you think you can get through the day? And most of us will say, yeah, I can get through a day. He said, you got it. That's it. Now there's this idea of whether or not there's a God, not a religion, not a church, but a God. Is it possible that there's somewhere something that has all power? Is it any way that anybody could believe something like that? That there's something somewhere, somehow, there's something that has all power, not some power, but all power, nothing to do with drinking. But do you believe? Again, that's what the second step is asking. And you all got me to believe it when you said to me, Lee, my sponsor in particular, he said, Lee, said, how you think you got through 3 car accidents? Say, how you think you got to humiliate yourself? How you think you got out of jail? How do you think all that you lived through while you were drinking got you to where you are now? He said, your mama didn't do it. Your daddy didn't do it. Obviously, you ain't getting nothing out of school. How do you think you survived, son? How do you think that happened for you? And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, with absolute certainty, I had no idea. I didn't know. I'd never thought about it before. And it's very similar to I'm not sure if it's a poem or not, but some of you all have heard this idea of this footprints in the sand. Well, that's kind of how he helped me understand what happened. And this idea, this guy was talking about the struggles in his life and was blaming God. And then the voice said, well, wait a minute, man. Say, if you're talking about the struggles and you got through them, who do you think carried you? And that kind of, oh, it makes sense to me. Now, it might not make sense to you all, but it makes sense to me. And that's one of the real key elements of Alcoholics Anonymous. Stay with us until you hear something that makes sense to you as you understand it. Because this isn't about right or wrong or good or bad. This is about growing up, changing my mindset. And my mind changed when my behavior changed. And my behavior changed when I stopped drinking and I got to meet you all. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. Now, Bill and them, they saw people struggling. And that's why he said some of us are holding on to our old ideas. And he went on to talk about, how some of us, our ego, arrogance, we just don't want to admit defeat. Well, I didn't understand defeat. I didn't understand surrender, but I was clear about change. And once I met you all, I didn't want to hang with them anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. And the guy that brought me told me, he said, well, here's the good news, son. He said, we're going to be available to you the rest of your life. All you got to do is show up. That's all you got to do. Now, in closing a piece of history, you hear somebody read the 12 Traditions. Well, when that book was published in 1939, the traditions were not in existence. Bill had not written them yet. Think about how powerful that is. Ask yourself, well, what's in this book that's so helpful? And the very first edition that was published in 1939, on the back cover, the bottom paragraph says, send the publisher $3.50. We're going to send you this book. We want you to keep it for a week. If the information in this book, you don't find it to be helpful to you, send it back to us and we'll give you your money back. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a money back guarantee that the information in that book can help the alcoholics. I want you to just hold on to that. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm asking you to try to understand the people that created this formula for us. They proved it to themselves, and they finally got me to give myself to this simple program. And this program is what I had mentioned to you. Somebody read the 12 steps. They even changed for me once I stopped reading the numbers and just read the flow. How one thing just rolled right into the other to help me in my understanding. And the decision to stay with you all was not difficult for me at all. I knew doggone well you all not only look different, but you live a different life than the people I drank with. So the third step said I made a decision, and I did, ladies and gentlemen. I decided I'm going to stay with y'all, hell or high water. And in the book, it says, can you stay with us fair weather and foul? And I managed to do that, fair weather when things go the way I want, and foul when things don't go the way I want. When I'm hurt and angry and sad and lonely, and my arrogance and ego and self-righteousness won't let me own it, y'all are here. I used to believe, follow this one, I used to believe that the most important thing I could do was don't drink and go to meetings. And then I had a spiritual awakening and a psychic change. And I now believe what the first tradition says, Lee, you can't stay sober without them. Lee, you can't stay sober without them folks. And they're going to be there for you the rest of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, that's good news. It is for me. And I would hope that you give yourself a chance, give yourself an opportunity, because we're going to be here for you tomorrow. We're going to be here for you tomorrow. And Christy, I think I did just what you asked me to do. And I don't want to mess up. So thank you for the opportunity. And now, y'all, you take over.